up, we have Brian Heaslip from Bottomglass, our county championship winning manager from last year. Thanks a million, Brian, for taking time out of your day to answer a few questions for us. Congratulations on a huge year last year for yourself and Bottomglass. How strange, I suppose, is it to be defending champions and heading for the end of March and not having had a game?
Yeah, definitely. It is. It's strange, to say the least. I suppose, we're so used to starting in November, and at this stage, you'd have a lot of the groundwork done. Just having to trust the lads themselves to do it, it's totally different. You can only hope that the lads are buying into it. That's the main thing, and that, please God, if we do get back in the coming weeks, that we'll be ready for it.
I suppose something like that, it takes huge trust within the group to keep going and return in good shape or whatever. But it strikes me from last year that there is a huge trust within the group that, after the year they had before, I suppose, to turn things around and play so cohesively and set themselves up so well. The huge trust in what you were all doing there.
Yeah, and I think it kind of even goes back a bit further to the previous 2 years where things just hadn't gone well for the squad, and they knew themselves that to get the rewards that something had to change. So whether it was a freshness that we brought to it and different ideas, I think the lads were definitely stung from the previous couple of years. So they really bought into what we proposed to them last year. And again, in the lockdown last year, in the early stages of it, once we went back, you could see that they really had bought into our strength and conditioning, and that the focus was where we wanted it to be when we got back to the field. I think that was a massive thing for us last year. Going into this year, it's slightly different because obviously we're coming in as county champions, but that just means that they have to do even twice as much work in this period for it to be ready when we go back to the field. Because obviously trying to defend the title is a hell of a lot harder than just trying to win your first one. Yeah,
and I suppose it's almost like you see what I have scribbled down in front of me here. Coming from a hugely successful and traditional club like Bottomglass, winning last year is well and truly parked at this stage, and only retaining it will be good enough up around Bottomglass way now, I suppose.
Yeah, well, we have to park it. It's we said at the start of last year that the past is the past, and that we'll do the same this year. At the start of this year, we had a chat with the lads, and we'll do the very same coming back into it. That all the hard work has to be done. We've added to the squad, so places. We want competition for places there. Most importantly, and we feel that could be a big factor to drive the lads and bring them to the next level.
Yeah, and I suppose last year coming in, one thing that struck me particularly was your team structure defensively, and from defence to attack was so smooth running. Was it something you worked hard on last year?
Yeah, again, they had conceded far too many goals. The personnel didn't change too much last year. Maybe Kevin Murphy going in full back just for a bit of stability was probably the biggest move, but the personnel outside of that didn't really change. It was just, as you say, to get a system in place, and that regardless of who came into the team, they bought into the system, and that their work rate and not being nervous about going forward with the ball. We just felt they were a bit apprehensive early in the year in our first couple of league games. So it did take a while to get them to buy into that. And we'd probably had a better picture after the third league game before the second lockdown last year, which meant coming back into championship, lads really knew what their role was in the positions. And that's mainly what they were expected to do.
I suppose, you have a great mixture there at the minute of a kind of the bit of experience and the young lads coming through. The one thing that has always struck me, any young Bottomglass you see team over the last few years, their skill levels and they're very comfortable with the ball. There must be a great structure in place in Bottomglass with your underage setup. Yeah,
the underage setup has been very good for a number of years. And you mentioned the experience there too, the likes of Billy Cullen. Billy's been around the block a long time, but I really thought Billy really stood up last year as a leader on the pitch. And, his performances were massive for us last year, but also outside of that, Billy working with the young lads and encouraging them. And Billy had managed the under-20s for a couple of years previously. That's, anything like that in a team is a massive help. And outside of that, with John McGrath's experience, Adam McHugh was a breath of fresh air last year. So we had a good balance to the team. And I suppose using that to our advantage and getting lads to buy into that the most important thing was the team. That was a huge feature in our focus last year.
And I suppose after winning the championship last year, we're in strange times or whatever. There would have been a little bit of a disappointment that you couldn't have a crack at the club championship as well, I suppose.
Yeah, in hindsight, definitely. In hindsight, you would be thinking, God, it would have been nice to test ourselves in a round or two of the Leinster Championship, and whether that would have brought us up to another level if we could rise to that. It would have been very interesting to see. But look, I think at this time last year, we weren't sure if we would get a championship played. And in fairness, when the championship was played, I thought it was played at a very high standard right across the board. And it was really competitive championship. So we had to be happy at the end of the day, with getting football last year was probably the most important thing.
Yeah, and I suppose looking back at the Forma had the championship last year from a neutral point of view looking in, it was a great championship to look at. As you said, that it was a really high excitement level, there was high skill level, it was brilliant. But would there be anything you change with the Forma had the championship, or were you happy enough with it? Happy with it? I suppose when you win it, you're always happy anyway.
Yeah, well, for sure. We wouldn't change it having won it. But no, I think in fairness, once the decision was made last year and it gives you a focus, going back to the time even when we would have played years ago, it was a knockout championship and that was it. So for myself personally, it wasn't a massive change, but for players having been used to the group system for a couple of years, it probably was a big change last year. Whether to go back to the group, you're taking a chance obviously on time in the circumstances at the moment. Whether the group systems would make it a longer championship. Look, there's pros and cons to that. But yeah, I'm definitely in favour of the knockout championship. I think 2 chances for any team is probably enough, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose, look, like you've made the statement there, if you're beaten twice in a championship, there's not really much you can ask for any more than the second chance. And I suppose looking forward to the rest of the year, it's hard to look forward. We don't really know what's going on at the minute. It's looking at the minute like the club scene will probably be pushed back second. But, what would be the perfect 2021 for Brian Heaslip of Botglass? Presume retaining your title?
Well, retaining the title, but if we're lucky enough to get back hopefully around May and get some league games in, which could lead us into a championship in probably late July into August. Look, once we have a layout on where, with the structure of where to aim to, that would be, I think for any club really, that's what we want, and that's what was great last year was we the dates went according to plan. There was no real hold-ups, and look, we won't look. Personally, wouldn't be looking too far ahead. As regards to retaining titles, we need to get a lot of hard work done and get back playing football and enjoying football. Because look, at the end of the day, we all miss it, and we miss it a hell of a lot. Particularly the lads do. Yeah, look, we all miss it, as you said yourself. Look, thanks a million for taking your time out of your day there to answer a few questions. It's great to speak to you again, and the very best of luck in 2021 for whatever it holds for us all. But look, we'll see you back in Ockram shortly, hopefully. Please God, Emmett. Thanks a million.